Okay, hi everybody. Welcome back to another lesson. This is the week of April 20th to April 24th. This week, our genre that we're going to be talking about is poetry. So, we're going to start off by watching a brain pop about poetry. Here we go.
I saw the robots of my generation destroyed by bad programming, beeping hysterical, wiring themselves in the garage at dawn, looking for an AC adapter, the absolute heart of the lithium-ion battery, guaranteed to run for 1,000 years. Dig it, brothers and sisters. Dear Tim and Moby, what can you tell me about poetry? From Gabriella. Chances are you're already pretty familiar with some forms of poetry. From the nursery rhymes you learned as a kid to the song lyrics you listen to now, your head is probably filled with poetry. Poetry is any writing that uses words for their sound and rhythm as well as their meaning. Ordinary writing, like you'd find in a textbook, newspaper article, or novel, is called prose. It expresses ideas in simple, direct language. Poetry, on the other hand, usually emphasizes artistic elements like rhythm, rhyme, and repetition. You can measure a poem's rhythm with something called meter. Meter takes into account how many syllables are in each line, what the pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables is, stuff like that. For example, the English poet Alexander Pope wrote in iambic pentameter. That's a popular type of meter with 10 syllables per line, and with every unstressed syllable followed by a stressed syllable. The rhythm of a poem in iambic pentameter goes ba-bump, 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 ba-bump. Relentless walls whose darksome round contains repentant sighs and voluntary pains, ye rugged rocks which holy knees have worn, ye grots and caverns shagged with horrid thorn. That's Alexander Pope. You'll notice that repetition comes into play here. You can see the first two lines start with a 3-syllable word beginning with the letter R, and the use of ye repeats at the start of the second two lines. Right, I was just getting to rhyme. Rhyme is the repetition of similar sounds, usually at the end of lines of poetry. Far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green, their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. Not all poems rhyme, but ones that do usually have what's called a rhyme scheme, or pattern. Let's take a look at that Pope poem again. Relentless walls whose darksome round contains repentant sighs and voluntary pains, ye rugged rocks which holy knees have worn, ye grots and caverns shagged with horrid thorn. You can see the pattern. It's divided up into pairs of rhyming lines, or couplets. Mark each different rhyme with a letter, and you have the rhyme scheme. Not all poems have rhyme or meter, though. A lot of modern poets write in free verse, which has no set meter or rhyme scheme. The lines are simply broken up the way the poet sees fit. You are humped higher and higher, black as stone. You sit with your head like a carving in space, and the little green cat is a bug in the grass. That's a good question. People write poetry because it can express certain feelings and ideas better than prose. Poets often used their craft to make you think about an experience in a new and interesting way. It's sort of like painting a picture with language. Check out this piece by Emily Dickinson. It sifts from leaden sieves, it powders all the wood, it fills with alabaster wool the wrinkles of the road. Can you tell what she's talking about here? Right, snow. To make us see and feel the snowfall, Dickinson uses the poetic tool of metaphor. That's when you compare one thing to something else. In this poem, snow's not just frozen water, it's alabaster wool that sifts from leaden sieves. Sorta does make you shiver reading this. Poems can often seem difficult to understand when you first look at them. Often it's because poets like toying with the different meanings of words and phrases. So when you read a poem, make sure you read it thoroughly and carefully. And if possible, you should read it aloud to get a better feel for the sound and rhythm of the words. By paying close attention, you'll have a better chance of understanding what the poet is trying to say. You've got a poem? I think you misspelled thermonuclear here.
All right, so now that we know that a poem is a writing that expresses feelings and ideas. So these are just some different feelings. So just think about these different faces that you see. There could be a poem that each of these feelings could be written about. Poems have lines, and groups of lines are called stanzas. So whenever you see a group of lines together like this or like this, it's called a stanza. Now, when we're writing just a regular story during our writing time and we have groups of lines like this with a space like that or an indent like that, we call these paragraphs. But in poems, they are called stanzas. Okay? And the lines in the stanzas show visual patterns. So if you look right here, there's a pattern between each one. Can anybody guess what the pattern is for each of these stanzas? And I know you can't read the words, so just looking at it. But if I was to look at it and I wanted to count the lines, I'd say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 here, 3, 6, 6 here, 2, 4, 6 here. So it looks like the pattern here is that there's 6 lines in each stanza. So these are lines, but when it's a group of lines together, it's called a stanza. Poems have rhythm and some poems have rhyme. So like pin, min, win, bin. Both rhyme and rhythm are elements of structures. So some things that you can look for to see if you're reading a poem or if this is a poem or poetry is you can ask yourself, does the text have groups of lines or stanzas? Does the text have rhythm or a pattern of beats? So like if we were to say, Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. So I wasn't like Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great blah, blah, blah. I was trying to do it with rhythm. Okay, just like when you're singing or you're dancing to a song, you want to do it with rhythm. Does the text have rhyming words? But remember, all poems do not have to have rhyming words. Are there repeated words? Repetition that makes a poem interesting, and sometimes it provides the rhythm. Are there sensory words? So our senses, our 5 senses are sound, smell, touch, taste, sight. Are there words in there that are making us think about our senses? And then the last question is the text presented in a shape? So sometimes when people write poems, they do it in a shape. I don't know if you can read this one right here, but it says, rain, rain, go away, come again another day, rain, rain, go away. So it looks like they did theirs in the shape of a what? Of an umbrella. This one looks like it's a gingerbread, so I assume that's probably going to be the gingerbread man. This one is a butterfly. Just look at the different things that you can write a poem in. Which one is your favorite one? I kind of like this fox one right here because it's like simple, but it's still kind of interesting. All right, let's go ahead and let's look at our chart now. So, a poem is a piece of writing that uses vivid words to appeal to the senses. The words express feelings and ideas, often in a rhythmic way. Usually the words are arranged in lines and the lines are arranged in stanzas. Sometimes, however, a poem is arranged to make a shape, becomes part of a picture, has different styles of lettering. Okay? A poem's shape, placement, and lettering can add meaning and fun. Many poems rhyme, but not all poems do. And then if we look at our anchor chart over here, it says a poet can create poems using shapes to add enjoyment and meaning. So if you're somebody who writes poems, then you are called a poet. This is a poem about a sun shape, might take this shape. So this is a shape of a what? Of a sun. What do you think this poem might be about? Yeah, this poem might be about maybe stop signs or signs. A poem that says stop might fill this shape. A poem using dialogue may be in this shape. So if you ever read comic books or whatever, whenever somebody's talking, you put this little shape right there and you put the words inside. So maybe if it's going to be a poem about people talking, they'll use this shape. And this shape could probably be a poem about a what? Looks like a leaf. So it might be a poem about a plant that has a leafy shape. All right. We are now going to look at our vocab for today. So let me pull that up. Okay, today we are going to read a story or a poem that is titled Volcano Wakes Up. So before we read, we always go over some vocabulary that we're going to see in there. So let's go over these words. We have lava, and lava is hot melted rocks that flow from a volcano. So like this red, it looks like this could be a volcano right here. This red stuff that's shooting out of it, that's called lava. Construction. What do you think construction is? Like, let's say if I was driving or I was walking and I saw some construction workers outside, what would they be doing? They would be building something. So construction is the act of building something. Cinders. Those are pieces of rock and wood that are partly burned. Do you know what a crater is? So a crater is the hole at the top of the volcano. And detour. If you're going to take a detour for something, that means you're going to go a different way. So sometimes if we're outside and we're about to go to recess from lunch, if it's really, really rainy and there's puddles all in the grass, then instead of you guys running through the grass to get to the playground, you might take a detour. You'll go another way and take the sidewalk. So a detour means you're going the same place. You're just going there a different way. So these words are going to help us understand details in Volcano Wakes Up. As we read, we're not going to highlight because we can't really highlight, but we're just going to just think about these words when you see them in the text and think about how they help you understand details about volcanoes.